I never imagined that the man my daughter was planning to marry would stand up at my Thanksgiving table, look me straight in the eye, and say, "Edward, I think it's time you move to the basement apartment. Jennifer and I will need the master bedroom when we move in after the wedding." Then he turned to my guests and added with a smirk, "We can't have him shuffling around upstairs embarrassing us when we host important dinners." The room went dead silent. 23 people, my family, my daughter Jennifer's friends, and Marcus's business associates sat frozen with forks halfway to their mouths. I felt my face burning, not from anger yet, but from the sheer disbelief of what I'd just heard. This was my house. The house where I'd raised Jennifer and her younger sister Sarah after their mother died 12 years ago. The house where every Thanksgiving for 32 years had been filled with laughter and love. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. My name is Edward Richardson. I'm 65 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty good relationship with my oldest daughter, Jennifer. I retired 5 years back after spending 40 years as an electrical engineer. Nothing fancy, or so everyone thought. I worked for various companies, lived modestly, drove the same Toyota Camry for 15 years. After my wife Margaret passed away from cancer in 2013, I poured everything into raising our 2 girls. Sarah, the younger one, became a 3rd-grade teacher. Jennifer went to law school, made partner at a corporate firm by 30, and I was proud as hell. Then she met Marcus Webb. Marcus was 35, CEO of a tech startup called Vision Sync. He drove a Tesla, wore expensive suits, and talked constantly about disrupting industries and scaling solutions. The first time Jennifer brought him to Sunday dinner 6 months ago, he spent 20 minutes explaining to me why traditional engineering was obsolete and how real innovation only happened in Silicon Valley now. I smiled and nodded. I wanted Jennifer to be happy. Over the next few months, I started noticing changes in Jennifer. She stopped calling me Dad and started calling me Edward when Marcus was around. She'd make little comments about my furniture being dated or my clothes being very engineer chic. Once, when I mentioned a project I'd worked on, Marcus actually laughed and said, "That's adorable. Like those guys who still think radio engineering matters." Sarah pulled me aside one evening and said, "Dad, Jennifer's turning into someone I don't recognize. Marcus is poisoning her against everything that isn't expensive or flashy." I waved it off. "She's in love, sweetheart. She'll come back to herself." I was wrong. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Jennifer called me. "Edward," she said, "not Dad, Marcus, and I want to host Thanksgiving at your place this year. We're inviting some important investors and partners. It'll be good for his company. Can you handle the cooking?" I'd been hosting Thanksgiving for decades. "Of course, honey. I'd love to." "Great. And Edward? Maybe wear the navy sweater, not your old flannel shirt. First impressions matter." I should have seen the warning signs. Thanksgiving morning, I got up at 5 to start the turkey. I made my mother's cornbread stuffing, sweet potato casserole, green bean almondine, homemade cranberry sauce, and 3 pies, pumpkin, pecan, and apple. The house smelled like every Thanksgiving from my childhood. I set the dining room table with Margaret's good china, the set her grandmother had passed down to her. People started arriving around 2. Sarah came with her boyfriend Tom, a genuinely good guy who taught high school history. My brother Frank and his wife Julie drove in from Pennsylvania. A few of my old colleagues from the engineering firm. Jennifer's law school friend Amanda. Then Marcus arrived with Jennifer, and he'd brought 7 people I'd never met. They walked in wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Marcus didn't even greet me, just started showing people around my house like he owned it, pointing out what he called charming retro features, in a voice that made it clear he meant outdated garbage. Jennifer kissed my cheek quickly and whispered, "Thanks for doing this, Edward. Please don't tell any embarrassing dad stories tonight, okay?" That hurt, but I swallowed it. Dinner was set for 4 o'clock. I carved the turkey, and everyone filled their plates. Marcus positioned himself at the head of the table, my usual spot, and seated Jennifer next to him. I took a seat in the middle, next to Sarah. For the first 30 minutes, everything seemed fine. People complimented the food. Frank told a story about the time we went fishing as kids, and I fell in the lake. Everyone laughed, even Jennifer. Then Marcus stood up, tapping his wine glass. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The table quieted. "Jennifer and I have an announcement," he said, putting his arm around her. "We're getting married. I proposed last week, and she said yes." Everyone erupted in congratulations. I stood up to hug Jennifer, genuinely happy for her despite my reservations about Marcus. She hugged me back, and for a moment she was my little girl again. There's more, Marcus continued. We've decided to move into this house after the wedding. It makes sense financially while my company scales up. We'll do some renovations, obviously. Update it for the 21st century. He laughed, and a few of his friends chuckled. I felt my chest tighten. I'm sorry, what? Marcus looked at me like I was simple. The house, Edward. Jennifer told me you'd be okay with it. You're retired. You don't need all this space. We're planning to start a family soon, and this neighborhood has great schools. This is my house, I said slowly. I've lived here for 32 years. Right, and Jennifer grew up here, so technically it's her childhood home too. She has emotional attachment. Marcus's tone was the kind you'd use explaining something to a child. Look, we're not kicking you out. We talked about this, Jennifer and I. There's that finished basement apartment. Separate entrance, little kitchenette. It's perfect for you. You'll have your space. We'll have ours. I looked at Jennifer. You knew about this? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Marcus and I discussed it. It makes sense, Dad, Edward. You're alone in this big house. You'd still be close to family, and we'd handle the bills and maintenance. So I'd be a tenant in my own home? Marcus jumped back in, his voice hardening slightly. You'd be family, living in family property. But since you brought up tenancy, we should probably formalize something legally. Jennifer's a lawyer. She can draw up papers. Fair market rent for the basement unit would be about $1,500 a month in this area. But we're family, so let's say $1,000. That sound reasonable? My brother Frank stood up. Now wait just a damn minute. But Marcus wasn't done. This is where he made his fatal mistake. He looked around at his friends and investors, puffed up with the confidence of someone who thought he was untouchable, and said what I quoted at the beginning. Edward, I think it's time you move to the basement apartment. Jennifer and I will need the master bedroom when we move in after the wedding. Then the kicker, delivered with a smile to his audience. We can't have him shuffling around upstairs embarrassing us when we host important dinners. Dead silence. Sarah's boyfriend Tom looked like he wanted to punch Marcus. My brother Frank was red-faced, halfway out of his chair. Julie had her hand over her mouth. Even Jennifer looked uncomfortable now, though she didn't say anything to defend me. But one of Marcus's own guests, a woman in her 50s wearing an elegant pantsuit, spoke up. Marcus, that's incredibly disrespectful. This is Mr. Richardson's home. Marcus waved her off. Patricia, you don't understand the dynamics here. This is family business. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness, from the effort of controlling my rage. You know what, Marcus? You're absolutely right. This is family business. Which is why you need to leave. Now. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. I don't think so, Edward. Jennifer, tell your father that we've already started planning the renovations. Show him the Pinterest board. Jennifer pulled out her phone, and I could see she actually had saved images of my house redecorated in modern gray and white minimalism. My wife's antique furniture replaced with IKEA. Our family photos removed for abstract art. Something in me crystallized in that moment. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Everyone except Marcus needs to stay, I said quietly. Marcus, get out of my house. You have 2 minutes before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Jennifer, handle your father, Marcus said with an eye roll. Jennifer stood up. Dad, you're overreacting. Marcus didn't mean it the way it sounded. He meant every word exactly the way it sounded, I said. And you let him. You stood there and let him disrespect me in front of everyone on Thanksgiving, in my house, at my table, eating food I cooked. Dad, I asked Marcus to leave. The question is whether you're leaving with him or staying with your family. She looked between us, and I saw the moment she made her choice. She grabbed her coat. You're being unreasonable. We'll talk when you've calmed down. They left. Marcus was actually smiling, like he'd won something. After they walked out, the dinner dissolved. People tried to salvage it, but the damage was done. Frank stayed after everyone left, helping me clean up. Eddie, he said, using his childhood nickname for me, you can't let him get away with this. I won't, I said, but I need to think clearly. Can you stay tonight? I might need your help tomorrow. He agreed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study, the room Marcus had earmarked for conversion into a home gym, and I thought about everything. And then I started making calls. See, here's what Marcus didn't know. What even Jennifer didn't know because I'd kept it private after Margaret died. Being an electrical engineer for 40 years had been my day job, yes. But I'd also been smart with money, very smart. I'd invested early in companies that went on to do very well. I'd provided seed funding for startups back in the 80s and 90s, back when that wasn't even called angel investing yet. I lived modestly, not because I had to, but because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. My portfolio manager, Richard Chen, picked up on the third ring despite it being 11 p.m. Edward, everything okay? Rich, I need you to pull some files for me. Everything we have on a company called Vision Sync. CEO is Marcus Webb. Vision Sync. Yeah, that name sounds familiar. Give me 20 minutes. 30 minutes later, my email dinged. I opened the attachment and started reading, and then I started smiling for the first time since Marcus had opened his mouth. Vision Sync had gone through 3 rounds of funding. Series A and B had been typical venture capital stuff. But Series C, the big one that had valued the company at $50 million, had come from what looked like a consortium of investors. I scrolled down to the names. One of them was an LLC I recognized, Richardson Holdings. I owned 12% of Marcus's company. I'd invested 2 years ago based on Richard's recommendation. The technology was solid, the market was growing, and the returns looked good. I'd never attended board meetings, I had proxy voters for that. I'd never met the CEO. I had no idea Marcus was running the company my money was invested in. But there was more. I kept reading. Vision Sync was burning through cash fast. They were 6 months away from needing another funding round. Their current burn rate meant they'd run out of money by April. And according to the shareholder agreement, any investor holding more than 10% had veto rights over major decisions, including new funding rounds, executive compensation, and company sales. I kept digging. By 3 a.m. I had the full picture. Marcus's salary was $250,000 a year. His Tesla? Company lease. His downtown apartment? Company-provided housing. The expensive suits, the flashy lifestyle. It was all leveraged on Vision Sync's dwindling cash reserves and the promise of future funding. He was a peacock with borrowed feathers. Friday morning, I called my attorney, Bob Morrison. Bob had handled my estate planning after Margaret died. Bob, I need you to prepare some documents for me. Fast. I explained the situation. Bob was quiet for a moment. Edward, are you sure you want to do this? Jennifer is your daughter. Which is exactly why I need to do this, I said. She needs to understand that actions have consequences, that character matters more than appearance, that you don't disrespect the people who love you. Okay, Bob said. Give me until Monday. I'll have everything ready. I spent the weekend documenting everything. I went through my files and found the deed to the house in my name only. I found Margaret's will, which left everything to me, and my will, which currently split everything between Jennifer and Sarah equally. I made some calls to my bank, my investment accounts, and my insurance companies. By Sunday night, I had a complete picture of my assets. Sarah called me Saturday morning. Dad, are you okay? Jennifer called me crying, saying you threw them out. That's an interesting interpretation, I said. Did she mention what Marcus said to me? She said he suggested you might be happier in the basement apartment because the stairs are getting hard for you. I laughed bitterly. Sarah, sweetheart, I ran a 5 kelvins last month. The stairs are fine. Marcus told me I'd embarrass them at their important dinners and should move to the basement, in front of 23 people. Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. Jennifer's completely under his spell. I'm going to break that spell, I said. It won't be pleasant, but it's necessary. Monday morning, I drove to Vision Sync's office. It was in one of those trendy co-working spaces with exposed brick and too many beanbag chairs. I walked up to the receptionist. I'm here to see Marcus Webb. Tell him Edward Richardson would like a word. She called back. I heard her say my name. There was a pause, then she hung up. Mr. Webb says he's in meetings all day. Tell Mr. Webb that one of his major investors is standing in his lobby and would like 5 minutes. If he's too busy, I'll schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow to discuss the company's financial trajectory and leadership decisions. She called again. 30 seconds later, Marcus appeared, looking annoyed. Edward, this is my workplace. You can't just show up here. My investment, my right, I said pleasantly. Is there somewhere private we can talk? His face went slightly pale. Your investment? Richardson Holdings. 12% of your company. Didn't you wonder who was behind that LLC? I watched the blood drain from his face. You're one of your largest investors, yes. Conference room? We went into a glass-walled conference room. I laid out a folder of documents on the table. Here's the situation, Marcus. Your company is burning money faster than you're making it. You need another funding round by spring, or you're done. Now, I generally stay hands-off with my investments, but I take a personal interest when I discover the CEO is a disrespectful ass who tried to steal my house and humiliate me at Thanksgiving dinner. Marcus was sweating now. Look, Edward, I apologize if you're not sorry you did it. You're sorry I have power over you. There's a difference. I pushed the folder toward him. I've had my team do some additional due diligence. You're not just burning operational cash. You've been using company funds for personal expenses that aren't properly documented. That Tesla? Personal use, not properly accounted for. The apartment? Same thing. You've been living large on investor money. Those are standard executive benefits. Not when they're not disclosed in your financial reports, I said calmly. I've already talked to my fellow board members. We're very concerned. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign as CEO, effective immediately. You'll be allowed to remain as CTO with a reduced salary, because you actually are decent at the technical side. But leadership? You're done. You can't do this. I absolutely can. I have 12% voting rights, and I've secured proxies from 3 other investors who are equally concerned about your management. That's 31%. More than enough. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping back. Jennifer will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, I said, but she'll learn an important lesson about character and consequences. Now sit down, we're not done. Saturday. Second point. You will never ever contact me again. You will not call me, email me, or come to my house. If you're at a family event that I'm attending, you will stay on the opposite side of the room. Are we clear? What about Jennifer? That's between Jennifer and me. Your relationship with her is your business, but you will keep me out of it. You disrespected me profoundly, Marcus. You treated me like I was worthless, because I didn't perform wealth the way you do. You assumed because I drove a Camry and wore flannel shirts that I had nothing to offer. That's a character flaw, and it's going to cost you. I stood up and gathered my folder. The board will announce the CEO change tomorrow. My lawyer will be in touch about the corporate governance issues. Consider this your education in why you treat people with respect, regardless of how much money you think they have. I walked out. Marcus sat there stunned, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Tuesday morning, VisionSync announced organizational changes. Marcus Webb was stepping down as CEO to focus on technology development. A veteran exec from one of the board member companies was stepping in as interim CEO. My phone started ringing at 9 a.m. First call was from Jennifer. Dad, what did you do? I protected my investment, I said. Marcus's management was problematic. You got him fired because of Thanksgiving? I removed him as CEO because he was mismanaging company funds and leading VisionSync toward insolvency. The fact that he's also a disrespectful ass who tried to steal my house was just the catalyst that made me look closer at his management. You're destroying my relationship. No, sweetheart. I'm teaching both of you a lesson. Marcus showed you his true character at that dinner. He was willing to humiliate your father for social points with his business associates, and you let him. You stood there and said nothing while he disrespected me in my own home. She was crying now. I didn't know what to do. You defend your family, Jennifer. That's what you do. But you were more worried about impressing Marcus's friends than standing up for your father. I love him. Then you love someone who thinks your father is an embarrassment. Someone who tried to take your childhood home and turn me into a basement-dwelling tenant. Someone who's been lying to his investors about company finances. Is that really who you want to marry? She hung up. The next call was from Patricia, the woman who'd spoken up at dinner. Mr. Richardson, this is Patricia Chen. I was at your Thanksgiving dinner with Marcus. I remember. You were the only one of his group with the courage to say something. I wanted to apologize for not saying more. I was shocked. But I also wanted you to know I'm one of the investors Marcus brought to dinner. After what I saw, I did my own investigation into VisionSync's finances. I'm the one who flagged the corporate governance issues to the board. Thank you for that. No, thank you. I have 3 daughters. If any of their partners treated me the way Marcus treated you, I'd want someone to hold them accountable. You did the right thing. Over the next week, things unfolded. Marcus's fancy apartment? Gone it was company provided, and the new CEO cut personal perks. The Tesla? Returned to the leasing company. Marcus moved into a modest one-bedroom apartment in a less trendy neighborhood. His salary, as CTO, was comfortable but not extravagant enough to live on, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle he'd projected. Jennifer stopped answering my calls. Sarah told me Jennifer had moved in with Marcus to his new apartment. Sarah also told me the engagement was on hold. She's struggling, Dad, Sarah said. She built her whole identity around being Marcus's successful partner. Now she's facing the fact that it was all smoke and mirrors. Sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to find ourselves again, I said. A month passed, then 6 weeks. Christmas came and went. Sarah and Tom came over. Jennifer didn't. I sent her a card with a check for $1,000 and a note. I love you. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. She didn't cash the check. Then, mid-January, my doorbell rang at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I opened it to find Jennifer standing on the porch. She looked smaller somehow, wearing an old parka I remembered from her law school days instead of the designer coat she'd been wearing at Thanksgiving. Can I come in? She asked. Of course. We sat in the living room. She looked around at the furniture Marcus had wanted to replace, at the family photos he'd wanted removed. I broke up with Marcus, she said finally. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm not sorry he's out of your life. She nodded. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About Thanksgiving. About what he said to you. About how I just stood there. Tell me what you've been thinking. She took a deep breath. When Mom died, you could have fallen apart. You were 53, suddenly a single parent to 2 teenage girls. Instead, you learned to cook. You came to every soccer game, every debate tournament, every parent-teacher conference. You helped us with college applications. You worked extra consulting jobs to pay for law school. You were there every single time I needed you. She was crying now. And I repaid that by standing silently while my fiancé told you to move to the basement like you were some embarrassing burden. I chose impressing his friends over defending my father. I'm so ashamed, Dad. I don't know how to fix it. I moved to sit next to her on the couch. You just took the first step. You recognized what happened. You're owning it. But what you did to Marcus? What I did to Marcus was business. He was mismanaging a company I'd invested in. He was using investor funds inappropriately. I would have done the same thing if he'd been a stranger. The fact that he was dating my daughter just made me look closer. He says, you destroyed his life. I removed him from a position he was failing at and held him accountable for his actions. His life isn't destroyed, Jennifer. His ego is bruised. There's a difference. She was quiet for a long moment. He was never going to marry me, was he? He wanted the house, the connection to a law firm, the image of a successful power couple. But he didn't actually love me. I don't know what he felt, I said honestly. But I know what I saw at that dinner wasn't love. Love doesn't ask you to abandon your values or disrespect your family. I owe you an apology. A real one. Okay. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I let him talk to you that way. I'm sorry I prioritized his opinion over your dignity. I'm sorry I spent months calling you Edward instead of Dad because he thought it sounded more sophisticated. I'm sorry I forgot who I was and where I came from. I put my arm around her. Apology accepted. We all make mistakes, honey. The question is what we learn from them. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you tell me about your investments, about Richardson Holdings? I had no idea you were that successful. I smiled. Because it's not who I am. I'm Edward Richardson. I'm an engineer. I'm your father. I'm a guy who likes flannel shirts and drives a Camry and makes a mean cornbread stuffing. The money is just money. It doesn't define me. I didn't want it to define how people treated me, including my own children. But Marcus judged me based on appearances and assumed I was powerless. That's why he felt free to disrespect me. He thought there would be no consequences. That's a valuable lesson for both of you. She nodded slowly. I think I need to figure out who I am. Not Marcus's fiancé. Not the youngest partner at the firm. Just Jennifer. That's good work, I said. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you for doing it. We sat there for a while, not talking, just being together. Finally, she stood up. I should go. But Dad, can I come to Sunday dinner this week? You never needed an invitation, honey. You're always welcome here. This is your home. She hugged me tight. I love you, Dad. Not Edward. Dad, I love you too, sweetheart. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and thought about Margaret. I wondered what she would have thought about all of this. I think she would have been sad about the pain, but proud of the lesson. She always said that real love sometimes means letting people face the consequences of their choices. 3 months later, Jennifer's law firm is the same, but she's different. She started dressing more like herself instead of like someone trying to impress. She reconnected with old friends she'd been neglecting. She comes to Sunday dinners, and last week, she brought homemade rolls, Margaret's recipe that I'd taught her as a teenager. Sarah told me Jennifer's seeing a therapist, working through some things about identity and self-worth. As for Marcus, I hear through business channels that he's doing okay. He's a decent CTO, actually focusing on what he's good at instead of trying to play CEO. The company is stabilizing under new leadership. He and Jennifer haven't spoken since the breakup. My brother Frank asked me if I regretted how I handled everything. Not for a second, I said. Sometimes love means teaching hard lessons. Marcus needed to learn that disrespect has consequences. Jennifer needed to learn that she can't stand by silently when someone she loves is being mistreated. And I needed to remember that standing up for yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. You think Jennifer's learned that lesson? I think she's learning it. That's all any of us can do, keep learning, keep growing, keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. Last Sunday, Jennifer asked if we could go through some of Margaret's old photo albums. We spent the afternoon remembering better times, laughing at terrible haircuts and questionable fashion choices from the 90s. At one point, she found a picture of the four of us at Thanksgiving, maybe 15 years ago. We were all laughing, Margaret's hand on my shoulder, the girls in front of us. "Can I tell you something, Dad?" Jennifer asked, holding the photo. "Always." When Marcus said those things at Thanksgiving, part of me knew it was wrong. But I'd spent so long trying to become someone I thought was impressive that I'd forgotten what actually matters. Looking at this photo, I remember. We were happy. We were enough, just as we were. "You're still enough, Jenny, just as you are." She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. "Thanks, Dad, and thanks for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." That's the thing about family. You don't give up. You set boundaries, you teach lessons, you hold people accountable, but you don't give up. Marcus Webb learned that actions have consequences. Jennifer learned that character matters more than appearances. And I learned that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. We're having Thanksgiving at my house again this year. Sarah's bringing her famous green bean casserole. Tom's bringing wine. Jennifer asked if she could help with the cooking. "I want to learn Mom's cornbread stuffing recipe," she said, "so I can pass it down someday." "I'd like that," I told her. And maybe, just maybe, that's what real wealth looks like. Not the money in your portfolio or the car in your driveway, but the family around your table, the lessons learned, and the second chances we give each other to become who we're meant to be. That's worth more than any investment I've ever made.